introduction.
So my name is Shai Zakai. I live in the Goddess Valley, beautiful place in Israel. I am fifth generation from Israel of people who walk the land. I'm a photographer by train, and I'm the pioneer of ecological art discipline in Israel. I'm part of the eco art community in the world. And I have some other titles. I give environmental consultant to environmental campaigns. Well, art in general and ecological art in specifically has the power to create a change. What we call in Hebrew tikkun olam. This is what is really interesting me, because tikkun olam, meaning repair of the world, is actually a state of mind, because you must be an optimistic person in order to think that you can actually repair the world. About the role of the art as a motivator for creating social change, I think that art crosses disciplines, crosses borders, crosses geographical borders as well as political borders. I could easily talk to an ecological artist from Iran much faster than our politicians on a mutual ground. I believe that we both would like to create more harmony in this world. So, in the bottom of my heart, I really believe that any action of art, and as far as the environmental issues concerned, any action of ecological art can really create a change. And if I create a change in one person, then, maybe it's a kind of a starting point to create a bigger change. And I've published a few books. My latest book is called Forest Tunes, the Library, which happens to be the first green printing book in Israel. It's actually printed on waste. It's printed with, instead of mineral oil, which still serves as a base for printing, it's printed on vegetable oil. And in Israel, it was the first time, so I'm very happy. The project actually took me not much, something like 17 years. It's a life project where I collected leaves from 19 countries around the world for 17 years, observing, contemplating on human nature relationships and this widening gap between nature and culture. So during that time, I made a vow to look at what's happening to me personally and what is going on in the world. Wherever I came to give a lecture, I used to take dry leaves from the place that I visited. And through those leaves, I would look at our relationship with the natural world. Within the years, I had so many boxes with leaves, so I said, well, I really have a library. But instead of books, this is a library of leaves. So what I did is trying to talk to those entities, For example, can you see this? It's very romantic red autumn leaves from Provence in France, or something that comes from, can you hear it? It's fruit, seed pod. You asked me about a phrase that gives a feminine identity to the earth. And I never use Mother Earth as an idiom. I think it's wrong, and it caused the earth so many problems, because the idea that the earth is a mother directly gives the notion that she would feed us and she would give us, and we can take everything from her because she is the mother and we are the kids. And we can, it's our rights to take from her. It's mother-child relationships, and this is wrong. The maximum that I use is sister earth, so we can be equal. The ecofeminists believe that abusing nature and abusing women sometimes are similar. You could see in the beginning of environmental art in the 70s paintings of rape of the earth, giving the earth an image of a woman with hills and mountains in the shape of a woman that is raped. You can see it lots of images in art history about that. So I never use that phrase. It's really disturbing for me. Can you see this? It's and also behind me, it's box number, let's see, number 152, I think. And it's a box that contains the inner side of a prickly pear. Would you believe it? Prickly pear is so thorny that you cannot even touch it. But if you look inside closely and you dig into the prickly pear, you will see how fragile it is. It reminds me of a lace, something that is really, really fragile. So I've been looking at those entities, plants, for 17 years, and then I created with my partner, who is an industrial designer, Ran Spitzer. We've built an installation of relics, actually like a visual warning for people to come and visit and stay in the library or read what's in the library in the book. And in each box there is a short story that I wrote. And for this book, I created an interdisciplinary team with a biologist and a botanist and animation specialist and also industrial designer. And together we've built this multimedia installation, and then I could write the book. So it took me a few years more just to finish the stories. If you look at the book itself, the stories are built like the days from before computer, from where we used to go to libraries and take an inventory and then find out which book we would like. So each page is like this, a card inside of an inventory. And in each page you can see what is in the box in a small photograph, and then the story itself. And the text is divided to a documentary text as well as more poetic one, meditational one, as well as a documentary text that talks about the biodiversity, the loss of biodiversity, the specific plants and seeds and organic materials that I selected from all over the world and why they were selected. So for instance, in a box, actually I would like to read to you something short, a short story from box number 135. This might explain what I meant in the whole project. There is a say in environmental philosophy, there is a say that you should act locally but think globally. So when I'm writing about a specific field in Israel, I'm actually writing or talking about all the fields all over the world and all the agricultural landscapes that are vanishing, rapidly vanishing from around the world. So actually I'm treating local issues, but it's actually on a global scale. And this is why I think the readers in England, for instance, will feel at home when they live through the book. So let me tell you a short story from the Leaves Library, box number 135 out of 167 boxes. I visited a field up in the north of Israel. It was 2007. And I met a very interesting guy, that maybe the only guy in the world that bought a field not for real estate investment and not for profit. And soon you will hear why he bought it. One man who doesn't have everything but has a dream bought himself a field, or bought himself for the sake of the field. Not for profit, not for real estate, not as an inheritance, not in order to change it or even to do anything with it. He bought a field in order to dream. He comes there and sleeps in his field for at least 2 nights a week. When he's there, he simply observes the movement of the branches, the whisper of the reeds that define the edge of his plot, the creek hidden behind the whispers, the rustle of the cicadas, and the echo of the horses. Actually, it's a true story. He grows the olives with his gaze, sips the moonrise and herb tea from the field. A man dreamed a dream to sit in his field with its own wind and its own whisper, just for the sake of sitting in the field. So I went to this journey until 2009. I was also the director and founder of a non-for-profit association, the Israeli Forum for Ecological Art. And I used to get statistics, very sad statistics about deforestation in the world. One of them was that even though now we are in a much higher level of consciousness of guarding the environment, the rainforests in Brazil are still being cut in vain, in enormous quantity. Imagine like a soccer field. I hope you imagine it now. And then multiply it by 8. This is the amount of trees that are being cut as we speak for a minute. Each minute, 8 soccer fields, imagine, full of trees, are being cut per minute in Brazil. So it's really crazy. I don't know why we are doing it. I mean, I wonder why the end of the world didn't arrive yet. So I see my book, this small book is actually an excerpt of a 300-page book, but I didn't have the money to do the whole book, so to print it. So I print 1 copy of the full book, and this is an excerpt of selected stories and leaves. And I see it not only as an art book, and not only as an ecological book, and not only as a spiritual book, but also as a kind of action of a grassroots activist, you might say. Because I believe that anyone that will read it, that will read the stories and look at the photographs and the artworks that are inside, I will show you in a minute also one of the artworks, something will happen in the level of the cells in our body, because the body remembers. And I believe that within our body, in the level of the cells, we know how. We have the know-how of living in peace with the natural world. But we forgot during the years. So my belief is, if you read it, even if you consciousness to it or not, the level of your environmental awareness will arise. And that depends who you are. It depends in the Zakai ladder of consciousness, where it will stop until the next action that you'll meet. But I believe it in my heart that it will create a change. So I hope many people will be curious in Watkins' shop to actually read it and live through the photographs. I just wanted to show an example of one of my artworks that are in this book. I don't know if you can see it, but you can. But the readers or the visitors of the shop can open it in page 31. This is a piece that I did in Korea, and it was amazing. I represented Israel in the Art in Nature Biennale in Gwangju in South Korea, and at the end of the Biennale, we were invited to a dance, to a show where traditional dancers, all dancers, farmers, came to the stage and danced very unique, moving dance, and they were old men. So I was curious, and I asked them, and I photographed them, and I asked the people who hosted me, what kind of a dance is it? And they say, oh, this is a traditional dance that continues for 3,000 years already. And whenever people, farmers in Korea go to plow the fields, before they even do anything to the earth, they dance the apology dance. And I was so moved by this gesture to the earth, before even plowing the field. It's their field. I think it will take many, many years until in Israel someone will dance the apology dance. So what I did is that I went into a laboratory that examined in Israel, one of the sellers in Israel that examine genetic engineering. In the book, actually, for students, the library that you have in Watkins' shop, there is a story about a gardener that maybe it will answer your question, because this gardener used to spray the gardens. Each garden that he came to work, the first action was to actually kill everything that is there, because these are only weeds, right? And then he would go to the nursery and then buy artificial, cultured plants. And when he came to me, and actually it was the first and the last time that I invited the gardener to my garden. So when he came to me, I suggested some other ideas, and I said, we don't spray in this garden, I'm sorry. I grow my own vegetables, and no way. So he was kind of a listener, so I invited him to my studio, and I talked about ecological art, and I showed him some of my artworks, and then I took some boxes of leaves and I showed him. And then we went out, and I suggested to take some sheets from my closet that I didn't use, and they have flower printed on the sheets. And we put it instead of spraying. And then we put holes on the inside the sheets wherever we wanted to plant something. And that was instead of spraying. And I'm talking about it in the book because after about 3 months, he suddenly called me. I forgot his name even, but he called me very excited, shouting, and he said, do you remember me? I was a garden for 3 days in your garden. Can you remember me? I said, yes, but why are you so excited? And he said, I wanted to let you know that you spoiled it for me. And I said, what? Spoiled what for you? And he said, since I met you, I cannot spray the soil anymore. I cannot do it to the earth anymore. You spoiled it for me. Now I have to put some sheets and some paper and things, and I'm standing now and he's calling me from a garden, garden of a building, of a 4 stories building. And he said, I'm standing in and I'm trying to convince the head of the building not to spray the garden. And they are telling me that it's quicker and it's cheaper. And I said, no, I cannot do it. And I said, such a spoilment. I'm so happy for this. For those small meetings that I really created some kind of a change of thinking in a gardener. I mean, it's really great. It was worthwhile to have him here in my garden.